Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 306 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. Going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. I'm at home, but instead of working on the Windows jump list stuff, we're going to be doing some work on what's called the Unified Extensions UI. This is part of our push to get Manifest v3 out the door. There are various changes that we need to make to the UI to support web extensions Manifest v3, and that's what I'll be working on today. I'm helping out with that. So let's get started. I'll start by sharing my screen. 1 second. Am I noticing a slight delay between the camera? Is there a delay there? I can't tell. I don't know. I'm not sensitive enough in my let's not get distracted. All right. Here's today's agenda. So a reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I don't know what's going to happen today. I know kind of what I want to work on, but, we might get stuck. Who knows what'll happen? This is software engineering in the raw, warts and all. So we'll see what goes on. I have a vague idea of what will happen, but it might go completely off the rails, and that's okay. The second thing is that this episode guide, the episode agenda that you're looking at, where I'm going to, flesh this out as things go on. It's available to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description. Same thing with diode.zone. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it's in the details section. And if you're watching this on Twitch, it's down below in the channel description. I've added the links down there. So let's get into it, shall we? So Windows jump list stuff not going on. I'm working on these changes for the for Manifest v3, and there's a whole stack of patches. I want to show what we've got so far, more or less. Some of this may seem familiar because I sort of described some of it last week. Hang on, I'm just going to answer a question of someone. Let's show you what I've got so far. So in this profile that I'm about to boot up, I've got a bunch of web extensions installed that add buttons, what we call browser actions. Browser actions are kinds of buttons that show up in the toolbar regardless of what page is loaded. That's distinct from page actions. Those are things that show up here that only show up on particular types of pages. These are browser action buttons. And you might, be familiar with some of these. This is, what is this? RoboForm. This one's HTTPS Everywhere. I just grabbed a whole bunch from addons.mozilla.org. This one's uBlock, one of my favorites. What's this one? Cookie Auto Delete. Enhancer for YouTube. Got a bunch of stuff. Now, I've also got the panel open here, and if I can pin things or unpin things from the toolbar, and they show up over here, and then we can pin things back in the toolbar. That's working. These are items that, like, every extension that's installed gets an item in this list. That's kind of important because not every add-on adds a button. And this list will eventually get filtered out so that we don't have redundancy. Like, if we've already got a browser action somewhere in the toolbar, we won't show an item for it here, and we'll only list the ones that don't have a browser action somewhere visible in the UI. So we won't have so much redundancy. But the idea is every add-on might need to change its permissions for a particular site as you browse the web. And so we need to have these things, like this one. Permission for sponsor block is needed to read and change data on this particular site. So we're going to have to show a permission dialog or make it possible for the user to opt into letting sponsor block for YouTube work on this site. Stuff like that. I think I'd shown this last week as well, that the overflowing happens in this panel rather than this panel now. Built-in toolbar items go into this panel. Everything else, like all the web extension stuff, the browser actions go into this panel. What did I want to show you? Oh, right. So what we're working on today, what I've got so far, I don't know how many of you watching this have built a browser add-on before or a web extension before, but there is, whenever you describe your browser extension. Hang on, let me bring up the browser action. Let's pull up the documents, the web extension documentation for browser action. So browser action, this is how you can like programmatically add a browser action. I think, or at least programmatically manipulate your browser action. You can like disable your button programmatically, but you have to declare it inside of your manifest. And that's done. Where is the browser action? Yeah, in your manifest, you declare it like this. And one of the things that you can declare in the browser action, where is the key? Yeah, one of the things that you can declare is the default area. This is where the button shows up, and by default, I would wager that a lot of browser add-ons actually don't supply this. And maybe if you're a browser, like an add-on developer, you didn't know that you could do this, but in Firefox at least, you can declare when you're setting up your browser action what area the button's going to show in by default. And navbar is like this toolbar right here. This is a very popular one, obviously, for putting web extensions. Menu panel was the overflow panel. That is where it would have gone. Tab strip, that's up here, and then personal toolbar, that's the bookmarks toolbar. That's if you have that visible, then it would or enabled, you'd see it there, but that's where it would get added. And whenever you don't supply it, it defaults to navbar. Well, a decision has been made where in this new world of what we call unified extensions, if the property is not declared, if it's not defined, then instead of defaulting it to the navbar, we're going to default it to the add-ons panel over here. And that way, if you install a bunch of extensions, chances are it won't clutter up your navbar by default unless the add-ons have opted in. Instead, everything's going to go inside of your add-ons button, and then you can choose to like pin things to your toolbar if you really want to. That's the idea. So the first thing I've got a patch to do that very thing. Make unified extensions area what we call the fallback area. If the user has not declared a default area. Now, I also should mention that the default area can be overridden by the user in customize mode. Like they can, if the browser action says, okay, my default area is the navbar, the user can still move it to the bookmarks toolbar or the tab strip or something. What we're saying with the default area for the web extension is, if the user's never seen this thing before, if we're installing it for the first time, where should I put this? And so the default area, traditionally, when it's not been supplied, has been falling back to navbar. We're going to fall back to the add-ons area. And that's what this patch does. We look at the pref for the unified extension stuff, and we figure out what the fallback area should be. And set that up. And then do the same thing over here. Yeah, we have to do the same thing over here. And interestingly, extension actions is this thing that is shared between Toolkit, like for web extensions that ship on mobile as well. So we probably need to be consistent there, because before it was falling back to the nav bar as the default area. But there is no, I don't think the nav bar is really has much meaning necessarily on Phoenix. I could be wrong. I don't know if they pay much attention to it, but at any rate, we should be consistent. And let's see here. Yeah, what we're saying here is, okay, if unified extensions is enabled, then instead of falling back automatically to the nav bar, just supply the default area, which will be null or undefined if the user hasn't supplied anything. And then up here for the browser implementation, if unified extensions is enabled, then if null has been supplied, then use the add-ons area as the fallback as opposed to the nav bar. That's what's currently going on. And I'm not 100% certain this is the right approach, but I'm hoping that the web extension team can help me decide. But before I proceed, I want to file a bug for this because there's no bug associated with this work, and I think that's important. So let's do that right now. I just yanked out a beard hair that is like super thick. Gross. It was like, I thought it was like, I didn't know what it was. Something was itching, and and I realized, oh, I got something stuck to my face, and I yanked it, and it was a gigantic beard hair. That's really, I'm sorry you had to see that. My apologies. All right, so let's start by filing a bug. Too much information. Yeah, for sure. You don't need to hear about my grooming and my hair. My bad. So we're going to file a bug that blocks the extension button unification effort. We're going to say filing this under web extensions front end, and we'll say that like web extensions that don't supply or browser actions without a default area set should fall back to using the using area add-ons when unified extensions UI is enabled. Okay. By default, when we have, up until now, if a web extension with a browser action, I think should be consistent here, browser action, has not supplied a default area, we've fallen back to putting the browser action into the nav bar. Someone's asking what I look like with a full beard. I actually, do I have my backpack down here? Here, let me show you my if I have my backpack, I do. Hang on, let me show you my ID. It's got a beard on it. 1 second. Getting distracted. All right, check this out. I'm gonna switch back to. Whoop! Sorry about that. Check this out. Can you see this? That's what I look like with a beard. Very severe face. That's because in ID photos you're not supposed to smile. But that's what I look like with a beard. Now you know. Normally I would grow a winter beard, but it makes for poor mask seals, so I haven't grown a beard in a while. Serious 1.0. Yeah. Okay, by default, up until now, as not supplied, we've fallen back to putting the browser action into the nav bar. With unified extensions, with the unified extensions UI enabled, we want to change that fallback behavior so that browser actions without a default area get added to the add-ons panel instead. Okay, so task assigned to me, and this is the special whiteboard tag that lets us clone it into Jira for prioritization stuff. If you're curious about our Bugzilla Jira sort of situation, it's really interesting. Some people who do project management at Mozilla do not like Bugzilla. At the same time, or the tooling inside of Bugzilla is easier for them to create reports and to look at trends and graphs and whatnot. And so what we do is we have our tickets all in Bugzilla for engineering work, and then we have a bot that creates tickets in Jira that clone these ones in Bugzilla so that like Jira can be used for like Kanban boards and stuff, and then the work happens in Bugzilla. It's kind of interesting. See, look, a bot came by and just added the web extensions Jira ticket. Hey, what do you know? But we do all our work in Bugzilla, thank goodness. Not a huge fan of Jira, to be completely honest. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to update ambiguous next change set. Make unify. Okay. I'm going to update the commit message on this one to refer to this bug that we've just added. Make default set. What do I want to say here? Have browser actions go to the add-ons panel when no default area is supplied. When no valid with unified extensions UI. Here, I think we can do better. Make add-ons panel default the fallback area for browser actions. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Okay. Next up. This is gonna break a ton of tests. That's the thing. This will have broken a ton of tests. And I had started to fix some of those tests. Like this one, browser X to active script. This, I believe, should still pass. Should pass now. Let's find out if this passes. And X browser action area. Basically, I worry that a bunch of the browser action tests are going to be broken because they add browser actions, and I'll bet a bunch of those tests aren't supplying the default area, and so their expectations have changed. Okay, yeah, that one still passes. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through here's the browser ini, like the test manifest file. There's a bunch of tests that thankfully are prefixed browser action, and the way we can run just those, we can use start at and end at. Thankfully this is I think in alphabetical order, so I can go like run these tests, start at that one, end at this one. And let's just see which ones of these pass. A lot of activity, yada, yada, yada. Okay, then we lock up. So where did we just lock up? Click types. All right. So let's verify that we lock up whenever we just run it in isolation. Yep. Okay. And when does that happen? That happens entering test bound test click data reset MV2. So what was the browser action click types? Browser action click types. So test click data reset manifest version 2. Okay. So here, yeah, a browser action commands action. If it's, we're gonna say here, default area, navbar. Now let's see what happens. Good. Okay, let's go back to running our tests then. And, you know, this is basically causing us to use the same old behavior in our tests, but that's okay. That's what the tests were doing before. We're going to want to add new tests for the sort of the new fallback. And for any tests that we want to update to like have buttons show up in the add-ons area first, we'll just have to then update those tests. But we can do that later. So here's another one, browser action context. Here, action. Browser action, get title. Where do we set up that browser action? The manifest. Extension, startup. Where's the definition of the extension? Browser get manifest, manifest version. Manifest options manifest. So whenever we're past options and run tests. So who's calling run tests? Down here, manifest. Okay, browser action, default area, navbar. We'll do the same thing down here. Browser action, default area, navbar. So it does not have a browser action. Browser action, default area, navbar. Default title. What test was this? Sorry. Browser action context. All right, so let's run that one. Someone at Owenator342 asks, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing? Great question. Great question. So we are changing some behavior in Firefox. We're changing some add-ons behavior, and that is requiring me to fix up a bunch of tests that assume the old behavior. So I'm going through a bunch of tests that I'm trying to find all the tests that assume the old behavior and update them to assume the new behavior. Hopefully that answers your question. Owenator342. Nice to have you on the stream. First time caller. I don't know if that's true. Maybe we've talked before. Okay, here's another one that locks up. Browser action context menu. So yeah, here we go. Default area, navbar. Any other browser actions in here? Here's one. Let's run, what was this one? Context menu. Let's run it again. Perfect. Okay, so now let's... Whoop. Hello, the small plop. Good to have you. What are you currently making? I should have a bot. I'm glad you asked, the small plop. What's going on is I'm updating Firefox so that the default behavior of the add-ons, the web extensions API, is slightly changing, and I'm updating a bunch of tests that are failing because of that change, because they make an assumption about how buttons that get added to the toolbar work, and I'm updating the tests to assume the actual new behavior. That's the plan. Yeah, we will need to update the documentation. Absolutely. That's a good point. I should add that to the... okay, we got another one. I should add that to this bug here. We should also take the opportunity to update the documentation about this. Although, yeah. That would be a cool thing to show if you make a Twitch bot to answer the "what are you doing" question. Yeah. That would be pretty cool. Someone wants to write one, I'll happily deploy it. Okay, so browser action. Here's one. Set for stun. Default action. Default area. Nav bar. What was this one called? Browser action experiment. I think we're almost through all of those tests too. Experiment. Well, not quite. We're like a third the way through. Okay, that one passes. Let's keep going. Go, go, go. So many tests. Oh, yeah. Locked up again. Browser action click types. Wait, didn't we already update this one? Maybe not. Oh, start browser action key click. I think we had already updated click types. Yeah. But I got a feeling this is what we're actually locking up in, is this one. This looks like a spurious error from a previous test run. Here we go. This one's called key. What? Browser action key click. What in the world? There we go. All right, it likes it. Let's keep going. Keep going. Don't lose our stride. We're just burning through all of these tests, and eventually we'll have all the browser action ones done, and then maybe we can run the whole directory in the background while we work on something slightly different. Test, 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 test. Locked up again. This one's inside of pop-up port. Browser action default area. You know, the other thing we could do is we could search our tests. Projects, extensions, test browser. Search for the term browser action. Wait, grep. Yeah. So there's a lot. Although we don't know if all of these need to be fixed. Is the thing. So maybe that's less helpful than I thought. Okay, what failed just now? Well, along with the lockup, we locked up in pop-up port. Looks like we also failed a bunch of tests in here. So we're going to have to figure that out in a sec. So let's start with the lockup. Oh, we already did that. Now let's make sure that this test doesn't lock up anymore. And then we'll take a look at these failures. Okay, so these failures happen inside of page action icon. Browser action disabled is one, and then page action icon. So let's start with this one. Okay. I'm guessing it's the exact same thing. Yep. There's a browser action here. Needs to be put inside of the nav bar. Good. And then the other one was page action something or other. Page action icon. What's the actual path? Right here. Okay. It's expecting the right icons. It's probably having a hard time finding the, getting null everywhere. It's finding no button is my guess. Just the two. Okay. Browser action. Default area. Navbar. Over here. Default area. Navbar. Cool. All right. Let's go back to running our tests. You know what I really should do is not run the whole thing, but run everything that I've already fixed forward. So next time I do this, I should change the start at so that we don't have to keep doing all of the ones that we've already fixed. It's going to save us time if we do that. Because I think we've definitely fixed these already. All right. So this is where we were stuck next. So what we'll do is we'll exit. Oh, we also had some failures. Okay, pop-up preload. So these are listed in order of execution. So we're going to start our next set from here. So we're going to change our start at to here. And then let's run that one test. Failure. All right, good. Same thing. Yep. Page action, default area, nav bar. There's a couple others. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Bar API. So this one's more dynamic for API. API default icon. Is this gonna work if we use for page action? Hopefully it gets ignored. Let's see. We might have to do something special for that last one because it's dynamic. Okay, worked out. What was the next failure? Pop-up preload. Okay, so that's going to be the next one that we start at. And browser action, pop-up preload. There are 4, I think. Browser action, default pop-up, default area, nav bar, default action. Default area. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Pop-up preload smoke test. Just the one. Wow. It's doing something pretty amazing with that button. No idea what it is. I don't know if this is succeeding or failing. This is a really long test. I don't know if this is good or not. Oh, I guess that's good. Oh, it passed 2. What the heck? What does this thing test? Preload smoke test. Does it have like a for loop? Preload and cancel it multiple times. Test covering scenario similar to the one fixed. Possibly some other similar ones that might slip through. Test cancel pop-up preload race or an unpacked out. So it just like does a bunch of 200 of these loops. All right, well, let's not run that again. What's the one after preload smoke test? Pop-up resize. Yep, that one also needs to be fixed. Where are we in the list? Pop-up resizes here. We're almost there, gang. Still broken in pop-up resize. Okay. This is what I was kind of hoping to find, to see if there's something more serious, more interesting. Right now, what we've been doing is really mechanical. It'd be nice if we could find something more interesting. So it just sits there. Default area. It's just the one. Okay, so what are we in? We enter test bounds, test browser action menu, resize standards. That's this one. All right, let's test pop-up resize. Let's test pop-up resize. Where's that defined? Test pop-up resize is in head browser action. Oh, here we go. Are there any other? While I'm in here. No, it's just the one. Okay, let's try it now. Now this one I know it looks stuck, but it isn't. It's waiting for something. It's waiting to make sure that a thing doesn't occur, I think. And so it is just going to sit there for a second. I think it waits like 10 seconds, which is a really long timeout. Okay, so pop-up resize works now. So let's skip that one as well. Let's not run that again. What was the next one? Pop-up resize bottom. We might have gotten a fix at like for free because we changed that sort of like shared function inside head browser actions. So this might just work. Let's see. Will you be able to move the puzzle piece icon, or will it have a reserved place in the toolbar? That's a good question. I don't know. Currently, I think it's not going to be removable because we need to have a dedicated place for you to grant extension permissions and for us to anchor extension permissions. But we might not show it unless you have extensions installed. That's one thing I've heard. Or we might not show it unless there's something listed in there. So for example, if you have only browser extensions that add buttons, browser actions, and so like I was saying earlier, the panel will not list items for which you already have browser action, like buttons in your toolbar. If you only have web extensions for which there are already buttons, then I don't think the button will show. Or that's eventually the plan. But I'm actually not... That's a kind of outside of what I've been asked to do. So I can't say it with any degree of certainty. I've just been asked to help with the browser action buttons themselves. What is this? Browser action simple. And this is all to power Manifest v3 because we need to support that real soon now. The good news is, one of the nice things is something that users have been asking for a long time, is the ability to control to control extensions access to individual pages. Up until now, it's been kind of all or nothing. Like a website, a web extension can sort of declare what things it wants permissions from or permissions to access, but also it can just say every URL as like one of the things it can ask for. And I think now we're gonna be a little more strict. That's part of the specification for Manifest v3, as I understand it. Which, yeah, I think the user gets more granular control. Like allow the website to access this one and this one and this one, but not this one. That sort of thing. Yeah, this is pretty mechanical, but this is sometimes part of the job. So this may be done shortly. I think we're nearing the end of this set of tests. Yay, we just have some failing ones now. So nothing gets stuck now in that set. We just have these failing ones. So yeah, default area. Test static theme. So a lot of these, some of them supply a default area. Some of them do not. Default area equals navbar. But they all say, yeah, default area equals navbar. If uncaught test area, browser action themes, I have a test browser action on can't access includes images null. So where is this? 357. It's here. So let's skip this one. Let's try and reduce this a little bit and just run this task. Oh, maybe it's because here we need to supply default area. That might be. What file is this browser action? Theme icons. Theme icons. Okay, and now if we say default area navbar, what happens? Okay, good. And now let's get rid of the skip and run the whole test file again. And then we're gonna run the whole set of them, start to finish, the whole directory, and see what we get. I expect that there's still some busted ones. In fact, maybe we can do the next bunch. We'll do browsing data to ext content script connect. How about that? Ext browsing data, what was it? Browsing data cookie store id.js all the way down to browser ext content script connect.js. Let's see what we got. Ooh, I hear tea being made, or maybe it's coffee. I don't know which. That's exciting. Hopefully I get a cup. Now, because these tests don't exercise browser actions, it's possible that they'll all pass fine. Ah, this one doesn't. Oh, or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe everything's okay so far. Hey, yeah, everything was fine. Okay, so let's do the next block. So cookie store ID down to content script connect. Now let's do content cross doc group adoption. Let's do a bigger span. Content script cross doc group adoption. And we'll end at current window. And then let's see how that goes. Okay, that one's stuck. From browser action pop-up, right? Okay, so that's in content script non-tab connect. Okay. Content script non-tab connect. All right. Keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going full steam. Just be sour. Nice to be mean. Oh, tough guy. I'm not too keen. Oh, I'm the scheme. Mario C likes to keep it clean, clean. Gonna shine like a sunbeam, beam, beam, my scheme. That's the Beastie Boys. That's intergalactic. Well, let me see if I can remember some more lyrics. If my rap suit, my beat is stock. Let them step up, step to the table when I start to chop. I'm the rap DJ ad rock. I don't remember. Intergalactic, planetary, intergalactic. Okay. X current window. That one's got stuck. So let's run just this one. Another dimension, another dimension, another dimension, another dimension. Please don't take my video down, YouTube. Oh yeah, that's a good point. So there's this really great looking retheme coming for Thunderbird's calendar. Let's look at this real quick. Check this out. They're calling it Thunderbird Supernova Preview, new calendar design, and this is what it's gonna look like. It's pretty slick, pretty modern, especially on. I'm getting like, it's almost like you slap like Safari's center search UI with like Slack and Discord's sidebar kind of paradigm or elements sidebar paradigm for spaces or something. And then yeah, like really modernize that calendar. Like great job. This looks cool. Good job. What else about it? The weekly view. You can view week, multi-week. individual day. It's a little tip here. You might want to reschedule one of these. Looks pretty neat. If you got feedback or questions, join the conversation on Topic Box. Okay. That passed, so we got to the last test in our list. Let's do the next block, which is dev tools down to, let's say, Ext menus. Browser Ext dev tools inspected window.js, and we're going to end at Ext menus.js. Oh, so many tests in here. And then maybe we'll just run it from there to the end. And just see what we get. I hope that all these like DevTools tests don't need to be changed. I suspect they don't. I don't think they're going to be adding many browser actions. Like they seem to be running okay. What's going on here? Okay, opening up some windows. Windows! Ah, maybe we got stuck just now. Ext get views. Yeah! Yeah, there we go. Okay. What was it? Ext get views. So yeah, we did get outside of the DevTools tests. Not super surprising. All right, let's run from history. History redirect to Ext menus. That one might be broken too. Incognito pop-up. I hear delivery. Thank you very much. It's tea, everybody. Thank you very much for the tea delivery. All right, try it again. Today's tea is brought to you by Orange Pico. Orange Pico tea. It's basically what Canadians think of as black tea, the default. I think, anyways. Maybe it's just in my area, but anytime we talk about black tea, what we mean is Orange Pico. And I know for other places they refer to like English breakfast as the default black tea. Incognito views. But you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just in my area, and other people have different opinions. Hey, let's ask the crowd. What do you think? What is black tea? What's your default black tea? Do you know? Is it English breakfast? Is it Um, Earl Grey? Is it something completely different? All right, we got some feedback from the crowd. Black tea is tea without sugar and milk. Earl Grey from Danny Colin. So any tea without sugar and milk is black tea. Fair. Okay, that's fair. Maybe a bit reductive. The I guess what I meant was like whenever you go into a place and order black tea, what do they give you? Because in Ontario, at least, or in my area, anytime you ask for black tea, what you get is orange pico. That's what I meant. Okay, we've got failures in Xed menus. The very last one we ran. From Wiki, black tea, also translated to red tea in various East Asian languages, is a type of tea that is more oxidized than oolong, yellow, white, and green teas. All right. All right, so we got all the way down to Xed menus. Let's see if we can let's just go right to the end from Xed menus access key to the very last one. I'm gonna bet you there are still some more failures lurking in here. But let's see what we can do. We'll go right down to Xed, right down to Browser Unified Extensions Overflowable Toolbar. Okay, we got one. We got one. It is Xed menus events. Ooh. Looks like this is all dynamic. Contexts. So you say menu create params and you pass in contexts with browser action. So what does context do? Contexts. Wait, what? Menu create params. Case. Action. Okay, well, we can at least do that. That seems to be arguments that are passed to menu create. So maybe we're okay. Let's just see what happens. Okay. Next one is in X menu's target extension. And before we continue, someone just asked me something in Matrix, so I'm going to try and answer them. Someone outside of the live hacking channel. Someone's asking whether or not they want me to land this. I think I already requested landing. Is auto land closed? Landing is queued. Okay. Already queued it up. Just waiting for the tree to open for land. Okay. But thanks. Okay. So what was the failure in that one? Area. While we're waiting, anyone have any questions about what's going on that I can try and answer? Any questions about what you're seeing? Just go ahead and drop those in the live hacking channel. I'll do my best to try and answer. Maybe you have more T opinions or T information that you want to drop on us. That'd be pretty cool too. Okay. Mouse wheel. So we're down to mouse wheel. Mouse wheel zoom. Boy, this will be nice when this passes, when all these pass. This is the next one. How did I lose the double dash? Why Firefox often doesn't build with stable Rust? I'm gonna guess it's because we like to use no, I have no idea. I don't manage that. I do know that someone named Glandium, a teammate named Glandium, kind of at least partially contributes to like our build tool chain, and like when we upgrade compilers or when we change compilers, it's like a big deal. That's not a thing that we do like willy-nilly because of a lot of reasons. Mainly, I mean, we do want language features, but we also want somewhat predictable stability. We don't want to accidentally introduce performance regressions that occur, you know, at the binary profile guided optimization level. So, you know, we want to be pretty confident whenever we upgrade compilers or change compilers. So, I don't know. If we happen to always kind of like be behind stable Rust, maybe, or are we ahead? I don't actually know. Which I have a feeling we're always we're never using like a bleeding edge. That would be pretty irresponsible. My guess is we use like the long-term support ones, or I don't actually know what Rust's versioning toolchain is like, but I know Rust ships pretty frequently as a language. Like I think they did one pretty recently, like only a week or two ago, and you know, it would be, I think, probably irresponsible to change our compiler toolchain every time the Rust compiler shipped an update. So I'm guessing we only do like we do it every now and then. Locked to 3.11. Version for the requirement bump below. Locked to 3.11.1. Oh, Smurfy says, I actually think he used the dev version of Rust, at least for manual builds. Oh, that's interesting. So maybe I'm just completely wrong. This is not a thing I have a whole lot of visibility into. I'll happily admit. I run mock bootstrap to get myself the right tool chain, and then I run mock build. The whole, what compiler we're using and what SDK we're using on Mac OS, I leave that to much more people much more familiar with that problem domain. That is not a thing I'm very familiar with, and the problems therein. We have really, skilled people in that area who think about those problems so that I can think about web extension problems and browser UI problems. So, sorry I can't be a little more forthcoming or a little more clear on an answer there, because I don't actually know. Seems good, says Okris. I can't tell. I gotta assume that that's some kind of Twitchism. I don't know if that's like a sarcastic seems good, like building on fire seems good, or if it's like a. See, I don't know. I feel like I have very little in sort of cultural intelligence of Twitchisms. I just don't know how people express themselves on that platform. A whole culture is built up around how people chat and the emojis that they use, and I don't understand any of it. Did I just end up running the entire directory? What's going on here? I saw a bunch of like DevTools test fire up. What are we doing here? Maybe we're just running the whole directory. I also saw a bunch of tests fly by that I recognized that we'd run earlier. So maybe we're just running the whole directory now. Maybe I typed in the what I want to type in incorrectly. Yep, you did run all the dir. Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, let's see. We're making it pretty far. Let's see how it goes. This might take a little while. Let me see if there are any other audience questions that I can try and answer. Any questions about JavaScript that I can try and answer, or C++, Gecko C++. I can try and answer those. I don't tend to write much Rust in the Gecko code base. I've done it once or twice. I've tinkered with Rust. Oh, Smurfy says that they were wrong and then linked to a Python file. I can't open it without interrupting the test. So I don't know what that is linking to, but presumably Smurfy says, what Smurfy was wrong about was the Rust toolchain that we're using. So big of you to admit you were wrong, Smurfy. I think I always admire it when people can freely admit that they were wrong, and be public about it. Minimum Rust version 1.63. Oh yeah. All right, we hit one. Almost. Oh, and we got some failures too. All right, well, let's start with this one. This is what we'll start from whenever we oh, see, what happened was instead of start at, I must have mistyped or wasn't paying much attention, or my console screwed up, and that's why it was running the whole directory. It's because it didn't recognize what it was at the start at, and for some reason its fallback behavior is, I'll just run everything. Default area navbar. I'm gonna dream about that, writing that. Okay. Let's try that now. Any question about JS? I have a lot, but answering the meaning of life is probably easier. Hey, Danny Colin with that JavaScript burn. Yeah, give it a shot. Like if I can try and answer JavaScript questions, unless you're like wanting to talk about the design of JavaScript, because then I can't help you. I don't. There have been many choices in the design, especially in the early design of the language that I don't understand. These days, I think the language is, tending towards a healthier state, trending towards, more sensible design choices. How do you analyze minified, obfuscated JS? Great question. That is a great question. So if it's your own JavaScript and it's compiled or something, chances are the thing that obfuscated it or compressed it will have included something, hopefully has the option of including something called a source map, which is like a secondary file that our browser dev tools, and I think other browser dev tools, can find alongside the source code and basically map the obfuscated compressed stuff to de-obfuscated decompressed source that will hopefully also be included alongside the source maps. Now that obviously is not helpful if you are not the one writing the code. Like if this is not your website, that is you're not going to be able to emit source maps. But what I think, I have a colleague named Tom Wisniewski. I'm looking for who wrote an add-on. I don't know, maybe I'm not. Am I spelling that right? I did spell that right. Oh, with an S. Test case reducer. So what's interesting about this is an add-on by one of my colleagues. Its job is to, Tom works on our web compat team. And our web compat team is constantly, these are the people who, if you ever go to webcompat.com and file a bug, because you can do that. You can just file a bug saying this website is broken, regardless of what browser you're on. Or this is basically bug reporting for the web. And our web compat team works with other browser vendors, but I think it's mostly our web compat team to talk with browser vendors, website maintainers, to be like, hey, this website's broken in this sort of situation. Or maybe it ends up being a browser bug, in which case, they'll talk to the right team to get that sorted out. And so Tom works on this team, and as part of it's a great team. Love that team. They're helping to make sure that the web works for people, and you should file bugs if you're ever hey, this website's broken. You should use this. And one of the things that team needs to do periodically is analyze obfuscated code that we have no control over to see what's going on, to reduce a test case, to make it easier to file bugs for both Firefox or Chrome or WebKit or whatever, to say okay, here, you're broken in this sort of situation. And this add-on helps you do it. So apparently what this extension does is it inspects an element you'd like to reduce a test case from in DevTools, configures the parameters in the test case reducer DevTools panel for the add-on. Click reduce to see the resulting markup in a preview. So basically you can is there a more it's an add-on helping to reduce test cases from live pages. And it uses JS Beautify. So there are libraries that help you de-obfuscate stuff with JS Beautify. Reformat and re-indent bookmarklets, ugly JavaScript, unpack scripts packed by the packer, de-obfuscate scripts. So JS Beautify might be something worth checking out. Beautifier.io. So you can just jam stuff in here, and then this will beautify it. I don't know. There's some ideas. But you should check out this WebCompat add-on. I'm going to drop a link to it. I'm going to put it in the test case reducer. This is by my colleague, Tom Wisniewski. No capital C. And then what was this other one? Beautifier.io. So on inspecting obfuscated or compressed JavaScript. I guess those are sort of synonymous. I guess most of the time when you obfuscate, you also compress, but I guess not always. Sometimes you might inflate. Okay, let's see what is going on in here. Event page refresh. Here's another browser action. One. I think it's just the one. Yep, okay. Menus, refresh. Moving on. Special shout out to our WebCompat team. What a great team. These people are great, helping keep the web usable and functioning and not just working in one browser. Because, you know, we love web developers, but sometimes they don't test their websites in other browsers. Wow, I really hoped that this would be done by the time this episode ended. This has been a very mechanical episode of The Joy of Coding, but hey, sometimes this is the way it is. The only way out is through, and the only way through is by doing. Oh, we're into the unified extension stuff. This is good. We're nearly at the end. Okay, we got to here, which is page action click types. All right. Page action click types. Okay, let's keep going. Anyone want me to do any shout outs? Here, shout out to Ogris. It's been great having you in the channel. I love your dry sense of humor. Shout out to Ogris. And of course, shout out to Smurf D, always working on that. Working on the episode guide. You're always here, and you're always like chipping in with useful information and links and stuff. Shout out to Smurf D. You're the best. Big fan of you, Smurf D. Danny Colin, of course. Shout out to Danny Colin. Big fan. Big fan of all y'all. Happy to have you here. Let me know if you want to do any shout outs. Just drop some names into the channel. I'll just start doing shout outs. Okay, where'd we get to? API injection. So we're down in pop-up. Oh, yeah, Firefox's 18th birthday. That apparently just flew right by. So this is distinct from Mozilla's birthday, which, like, Mozilla is quite a bit older than Firefox. But Firefox's 18th birthday apparently just happened. Let me actually see if I can. I think I may have just confused this test runner by trying to open up a browser. Hold on. Let's see if I can find some information about it. Firefox 18th birthday. That's old enough to move out and get a, start a new life. Move out of your parents' place. Happy 18th birthday. Although it's weird. I feel like I'm finding a search result that's like happy 18th birthday Mozilla Firefox that was posted 2 years ago. In 2020. So how old is Firefox? Initial release 18 years ago, November 9th, 2004. Okay. Maybe other people were measuring from like the point where it got forked from the Mozilla suite. I guess, yeah, you have to ask what is the moment where you consider the start of a browser's life. Oh, geez. X pop-up browser. Wait, background, right? X pop-up background. When do you start counting? When it comes to the age of software. The release date? I don't know. Maybe you just have more than one 18th birthday. That's fun. There's lots of moments. Netscape to Mozilla, Mozilla Suite to Firefox. Exactly. Lots of opportunities to celebrate. Just celebrate them all. That's what I say. All right, we're hitting a lot of them now. X pop-up corners. Pop-up corners. Browser action. Default area. Let's keep going. Mozilla Suite to Firefox. Firefox to the rapid release model. Firefox using web extensions, Stylo, web render, lots of great anniversaries. Electrolysis, Fission was probably the biggest birthday recently, or the biggest sort of major architectural change that is maybe worth celebrating. Or Gecko View, that's another important sort of architectural milestone, although that has more to do with mobile, but that's okay. Firefox Mobile is still Firefox. Lots of big milestones. It's pretty exciting. Like it's pretty exciting to be involved on a project that is so long in the tooth. Firefox is quite old. How often are people still, like hundreds of millions of people, using a piece of software that's so old? Like you can probably count on only a couple of hands how many pieces of software have that kind of longevity. How many pieces of open source software? Like operating systems, obviously. Browsers are another one. But what other pieces of software have not gone, I don't know. And I mean desktop software. This is rhetorical. I'm not actually looking for someone to answer this question. I'm just exclaiming. I'm just remarking. It's a privilege to work on Firefox. That's what I think. It's certainly more, if you're interested in getting involved, maybe you're a student watching this, or someone who's looking to get into programming. Well, cool. I think that's great. And when you're in school, I find most schools will have you work on exercises, toy projects, and that's fine. It's like if you're learning woodworking, yeah, you start by learning how to saw, or if you're learning how to cook, you start by, how to use a knife, how to, clean your kitchen, keep things, sanitary and stuff. But then eventually you enter a real kitchen. And that's what I think of as the Mozilla code base. It's like a real kitchen. It is a place where there's like, it's not an exercise. We ship real things to hundreds of millions of people. We have to ship updates and do rigorous testing and accessibility and localization and security and performance and privacy and like all these things have to be thought of. And that's not to scare you off. That's almost as an invitation if you want to contribute to something really real world. Firefox is a pretty good choice. Do I know the Servo status? Is it still being worked on? So, for the people who don't know, Servo was an experimental browser engine written almost entirely in Rust. I think maybe entirely in Rust. And in fact, I believe it was written in parallel with Rust. As Rust was being designed, Servo was being built. And the reason for that is, when you're designing a language ostensibly to help make browser development better, it's helpful if you have a client, someone who's actually using that language to feed feedback into the design of the language of like, oh, we need this, oh, that doesn't work, or this is awkward, that sort of thing. And so Servo and Rust were kind of these two siblings. And there were some really interesting innovations that came out of Servo. It was kind of this greenfield browser engine from scratch. And one of the things that came out of it was Stylo, which was a CSS styling engine. And we were able to move that into Firefox. Another piece was WebRender. That was the graphics layer of Servo. We pulled that out and we put it into Firefox. And the rest of Servo, there was like a networking layer. It used SpiderMonkey for JavaScript, so we already had that. It had its own implementation of the DOM and was starting to experiment with like parallel layout. Oh, here's another one that needs to be fixed. And then they got redirected to, I think, mixed reality work. They want to use it in like embedded VR devices, and then that team was laid off. The ones that were working primarily on Servo, a lot of them were laid off. Some of them were, some of them were not. Some of them I think moved to other teams. But the people working on Servo, as I recall, were laid off. And then the Servo project was given over to the Linux Foundation. That's the story. It's like, okay, we have this thing. We are going to work on improving Gecko rather than continuing to invest in Servo development. So we're going to try and improve Gecko. We'd already brought some things over from Servo into Gecko. That's great. But now we're going to focus on Gecko. And so for the Servo, we're not going to invest any more into it. And this was right around the time where I think... no, I'm trying to remember when this was. This is a couple years ago. So we handed it off to the Linux Foundation, and I believe they're the ones who now maintain the project. And I actually haven't looked in a while. Servo.org. They have Zulip Chat. They're still on GitHub. Governance model, the technical stance. Copyright 2021, that's not a good sign. Linux Foundation, these are the people in the steering committee. I know some of these names. But meetings seem to have ceased in 2020, or at least posting of meeting notes. And then the actual source code, I do see some commits. Someone is still landing stuff. This is Josh Matthews. So it is still being maintained, but it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of activity. But there's a bit of activity, and a number of pull requests here. Some of these only days old. This one's a security vulnerability. So, activity is happening. People are filing bugs still. So that's my understanding. So I don't have a whole lot of visibility. I don't actually know. But it does appear that people are still contributing to it, and patches are being brought in. But yeah, like Servo, we gained some interesting things. It was an expensive process. Like bringing Stylo in from Servo, bringing WebRender in were multi-year projects. But those were, they've helped with browser performance. Our CSS performance and our graphics performance are pretty great, thanks to both Stylo and WebRender. And yeah, I think that's the story with Servo as far as I know. So those pieces live on inside of Gecko, and Servo itself is being maintained by the Linux Foundation, and it looks like people are still contributing to it. Hopefully that answers some questions. Oh, okay, so we had some failures here. Let's investigate this. We're almost right at the end here. I think we're gonna close out in just a second. If we can get to the end of the tests. Extensions, context menu. I'll be pretty happy. This is something I've dreaded doing all day, but I'm glad you were with me, gang. I'm glad the Joy of Coding gang was here with me while I did all this mechanical stuff. Because sometimes this is part of the job, Sometimes it's not always glamorous debugging in the toolbox or something. Sometimes it's just find and replace, and then overflowable toolbar. Here, browser action. All right, so let's run from from here to the end, and then we'll call it there. Fireglow goes rip. Yeah. I mean, like I said, parts of Servo live on inside of Firefox. And, the Servo team did great work. But I think leadership was like, we want to invest more in Gecko directly. And as a vehicle for helping to get, Rust to be a language that, other people wanted to use, I think Servo was a huge success as a lever to improve the Rust language as well. So in many ways, like Servo accomplished much of its original mission. It was always just an experimental browser engine, to like do R&D on interesting things. That was its whole purpose. And so I think it accomplished a lot of what it set out to do. That's my opinion anyways. But I'll also say I wasn't involved. Didn't work on it. So I don't have any like extra information if you're looking for any. These are X user events. I just watched and cheered from the sidelines when they merged Stylo and WebRender in. Something that might interest some of the people on this in this chat or watching the stream is I know Andreas Kling. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Kling, who works on a custom browser engine on a custom OS that he and like a bunch of volunteers are working on in their spare time called Serenity OS. There is a from Serenity OS. So Andreas and his team are working on this browser engine and from scratch, like the operating system, and I think it's called Ladybird. Let's look this up real quick. Whoops. Wrong browser. And it uses libweb, which I think is the web engine for Serenity OS, and libjs, which is the JS engine for Serenity OS. And it's got a cross-platform GUI written in Qt for Qt. And yeah, is there like a picture? Let's see, Ladybird. Like I saw one recently, like they're passing the acid tests. I think I saw a tweet recently where they have parts of Google Docs working, which is pretty impressive. You know, like building a web browser from scratch, like a browser engine from scratch, is no small feat. It's actually a really rare occurrence to watch a browser engine just kind of emerge from, you know, people's watching one just kind of show up brand new. That's a very rare event, so we should be celebrating the birth of a new browser engine. I all power to them. I think that's great. Let's more browser engines, gang. Let's get some browser engines out there. Woo! In the last video from Andreas, he tries to implement login into Discord. See, I find that so impressive. You know, like the stuff I'm trying to do feels like small potatoes with like extensions and stuff. Andreas is like building a whole, and his team are building a whole web engine from scratch. That is, again, no small feat. I mean, you have the advantage, of course, of starting from scratch, a greenfield project. You get sort of like you get the ability to have, and I know Andreas, I think he'd worked for Apple on WebKit. So you've got someone who's like, I've seen what web engines need to do. I'm in the future now, before, after the start of WebKit and Gecko and Blink and all that, I can start creating a web engine from scratch. And all of the sort of my knowledge of where the web has been going, he can build into a greenfield project. There's a certain advantage to that, I think. I mean, it's also, like, again, no small feat. There is a lot of area to cover. But if there's anything I've noticed from the people working on Serenity OS, is that they are not intimidated by large amounts of work. Yeah, not just a web engine, it's a whole operating system. Like, it is, it's wild. It's really wild. I'm intrigued and impressed. I've never booted it up. I've never tried it. I can't vouch for it as an actual product. I can't vouch for its security. I can't vouch for its performance, but I can certainly vouch for the screenshots that I've seen, and the screenshots that I've seen look pretty impressive, at least in terms of capability. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Almost there, gang. I feel like we're so close. We're so close. Pew, 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 pew. Almost there. Right around now, I think we start seeing the resizable, the unified toolbar ones. Yeah, here we go. We're in the final stretch. So Windows gonna start like getting big and small at some point. Yeah, here we go. These are the last tests. I wrote these. Okay. Just this last failure. Otherwise, we passed everything else. We did it, gang. Holy smokes. All right. Let's run this one last test. What one was it? Browser X Windows. Oh, they've also created a memory safe language. Yeah, it's very ambitious. Very ambitious. Let's create an operating system. Well, hold on. Let's create a language. Well, hold on. Let's create a web engine and a browser to go with it. Like, these are all humongous efforts, but they're pulling it off. Like, or at least they're making stuff that shows up on screen. I don't know. Again, I cannot vouch for its usability, its capabilities, but here, let's take a look at what it looks like. Serenity OS. My understanding, just looking at some screenshots, is it basically looks like Windows 95. If like the Windows 95, the 90s aesthetic appeals to you, then, you know, this operating system might be something of interest. Look, it's the web browser. Look, it's the system monitor. That looks a lot like the old school Win32 file manager from Windows 95. Start menu. Serenity Summer of Code when? Good question. Good question. But it's impressive stuff. All right, that all passed. Before I lose any of this work, let's commit it. We're gonna amend the commit message. We're gonna say 42,000 commits. Yeah, prolific. Like, this is the operating system, the whole project, Serenity OS and the browser and all these things is only a couple of years old. 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. Oh, system on chip. I thought you meant Summer of Code. My bad. Bug such and such. Update existing tests to put browser actions into the nav bar by default. We had a number of tests that assumed that when adding a browser action without specifying the default area, that the button would enter the nav bar. After this bug, the previous patch in this series changes that assumption when the unified extensions UI is enabled. Instead of updating all of these tests to add additional steps to move the browser actions out to the nav bar after adding them, I've gone ahead and updated them to default their browser actions to the nav bar instead. And it looks like I may have messed up some JavaScript. Oh yeah, that's not gonna work at all. XURL overrides new tab. I might have to run that directory. Again, but I won't do it here on screen. I'll do it whenever I go take a break. I'll go for a walk or something. I'll run the whole directory. Hey, thanks for watching episode 306 of The Joy of Coding. Pretty mechanical stuff. I hope that was interesting. We talked about Ladybird, Serenity OS. We talked about obfuscated and compressed JavaScript. We talked about unified extensions and black tea. What is it? Let me know what you thought of the episode. There's a rate this episode forum here in the agenda. I'm going to drop the link into the chat as well. And if you're watching this on Twitch, you can find the link down below to rate this episode. Basically, all the places where I put the link to the agenda is also a link to rate the episode. I read everything that comes in. Send me your questions. We also talked about Servo. Send me your thoughts. I read everything that comes in. And I will see you next week for episode 307. And we'll check it out. We'll see where we're at. Thank you so much for watching. Let me change cameras here. I'll talk to you soon. See you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.